You like it here? What do you like about this place?
My mom wanted to live here. Stuck in this shithole.
So, there's nothing you like about this place?
Nothing. Indecency. Lust. Desire. It has to go now. Look at the light.
Ryan? You okay? You see anything that looks like me? Don't go near it. It comes when no one else is around. Nothing can make it stop.
Open it! It's gonna kill him!
And this is what they wanted. They wanted us to be scared.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. It's Mike. Joining me as always, it's Mr. Venom. How's it going, Venom?
Greetings and salutations to all my straight and queer friends equally. How the hell you doing, Mike? I'm doing all right.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I had a 3-day weekend, so just kind of getting back into the normal routine. And let's see, anything eventful? Not really. Just kind of like a boring old Monday, but we'll see how the discussion on this movie goes. And also with us, it's Dawn and Ellie. What's up, Dawn?
Yeah, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
Okay, so this week, the biggest release that was in theaters was from Neon, and it would be Leviticus. And just from the title, you probably know like some themes going on in it, but the synopsis is 2 teenage boys must escape a violent entity that takes the form of the person they desire most, each other. Ooh. If that synopsis makes you think of any other movie in the modern era, there might be good reason to, but we'll get into that more probably during, I know in spoilers, maybe general thoughts, but Venom, what did you think of Leviticus?
All right, let's talk about the positives first. It is a beautifully made film, very well directed, very well edited, incredibly well performed. I think the highlight of this movie is going to be the performances from our two main actors. That's Joe Bird and who was the other one? Stacey Clausen. Joe Bird, genre fans will remember from Talk to Me in that very eventful scene. He played the little brother who smashed his own face open. Potentially one of my favorite scenes from that movie, from Talk to Me. So it's always good to see Joe Bird. Very well shot, like I said, nice cinematography, a serviceable score, nothing necessarily stellar or anything I would write home about. Good sound design, good set design. It just takes place in a fairly unassuming town. I assume somewhere in Australia. So the technical aspects are there. Beautiful film. Now, having said all of that, I did not like this movie. And the reason I did not like this movie is because it plays around with themes but never settles on anything. On top of the fact that the movie is very ambiguous. And I've said many times that I'm very okay with ambiguous films and ambiguous endings, but this entire movie is ambiguous. I mean, the lore is ambiguous. The religious aspects of this are ambiguous. the entity itself is ambiguous. It doesn't make sense what it's actually doing. If you make the assumption that this entity is some kind of demon, then it does not make sense what it's actually doing. And I'll get into that in the spoiler section later on. And then, you know, the horror of the movie is very toned down. It's more implied than visceral. I mean, I don't think there's any on-screen kills in the film. You could make the argument for the cold open, but we don't see anything. We just see a girl get pulled into a shower screaming, and that's it. So I guess you could make the argument that that's on screen, but really it's not. And then there's another major death later in the film that, again, we don't get to see. We get to see the aftermath, but we don't get to see the actual event happen. We get to see the start of the event, but then, you know, the characters kind of just dragged into the darkness, and that's all we get after that. So, like I said, and then the next shot would be the aftermath scene. But the movie was just too fucking ambiguous for me, man. I don't need my stories and my plot points handed to me on a silver platter, but I want to know something about what I'm watching. Like, I don't want to have to do the director's job and have to figure out the story myself. It's one thing if you lay some breadcrumbs of a story down and I can fill in the blanks myself, but there is so much ambiguity in this movie. Even our human antagonist, we find out nothing about that guy other than he's a giant hypocrite, which, again, I'll talk about later. This is going to, unfortunately, this is going to be a very religion-filled movie because the book of Leviticus in the Old Testament of the Bible is one of the most contentious books out there. I have a major, major problem with any so-called Christian who tries to live off any guideline bookmarked in Leviticus because they're being hypocritical. There's so much stuff in Leviticus that is ignored by modern Catholics and Christians that it just doesn't make sense that they would be so up in arms about homosexuality, yet they don't have any problem with the 70 other things that they're rules that they're kind of breaking that were spoken about in Leviticus. So I'm going to try not to get on my religious soapbox because I hate organized religion with a passion. So like I said, I'm going to try not to get on my soapbox later on, but ultimately I am a fan of religious horror, but this one, like I said, it doesn't delve into anything. It doesn't delve into the religion. It's really just the story of our two main characters and how they're dealing with this entity. But then even the ending leaves you scratching your head like, wait, really? That's it? That's the ending? Like, I'm supposed to accept that as a satisfying ending? And I absolutely did not. So the long and the short of it is, this is a beautifully made film. I feel the exact same way about this movie that I felt about The Plague earlier this year. For those of you who actually saw The Plague, same thing. Very ambiguous, no real explanation on what's happening. The viewer is kind of just forced to plug in their own explanation or just accept the fact that there is no explanation and that the events are just happening the way they're happening and that there's nothing that can be done. Even the rules of the entity in this thing are off. Like, they talk about one specific rule that it can't attack when there's other people around, and then 20 minutes later it just breaks that fucking rule. So what the hell's the point of setting that rule? So yeah, overall the movie is, it feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be to me. It doesn't know if it wants to be religious horror, if it wants to be supernatural horror, if it wants to tell a story about identity and acceptance and things like that. So, man, I really wanted to like this movie because over the last few years, LGBTQ plus horror has really done some great, great things. Not all of them, obviously. There are some that are just, you know, obviously offensive just to be offensive, but the majority of them have something to say. And I felt like if this movie had something to say, I mean, the only thing it really has to say is there's a lot of shitty parents out there. But I think we kind of knew this before we saw this movie. So I have a funny feeling that Mike is going to disagree with me, but I also want to hear his explanations for why, because every review that I watched and listened to after watching this seems to agree with me that the movie is just way too ambiguous and you don't really know what you watched when the movie is over. it feels like a chapter, it feels like a single chapter of a much larger story, which sometimes can be very satisfying. In this case, I absolutely was not satisfied. So like I said, I'll shut up about it now. Beautiful movie, really well made, but the story just left me really flat. Lots of plot holes, which I'll talk about during the spoiler section. But yeah, this is one that left me wanting more, especially coming from Neon. I'm usually a fan of almost anything that Neon does, even their kind of weird movies, stuff like, that World's Fair movie. I forget the whole title. We're going to the World's Fair, I think might have been the title of that movie. Like, I love that movie. And then there was the one about identity a couple of years ago that we did that got a lot of hype that I already forgot the title of. Maybe Mike will remember, with the black main character who, may have been gay or may not have been gay. The one about the TV show, the old TV show from the 90s. I forget the name of that movie, but I saw a lot of similarities between that movie as well and Leviticus. But that movie did it so much better, in my opinion, than Leviticus did. Like I said, Leviticus was just too ambiguous for its own good. So, if you're prepared to watch a very elevated art house style horror film with a lot of ambiguity, then yeah, Leviticus is probably for you. But if you want to walk out of the theater feeling like you actually watched a complete story, this might not be the film for you. On top of the fact that if you're more a fan of real visceral horror, this one's probably going to leave you slightly disappointed. So yeah, I'm going to say, from a filmmaking standpoint, 10 out of 10. From a storytelling standpoint, 5 out of 10. And that's it for me.
Were you referring to I saw the TV glow?
Yes, that's it
Okay.
exactly. Like, I love that movie. That movie was fucking great. And even though it also was ambiguous, there were enough breadcrumbs there for us to put a story together. And I feel like that was lacking in Leviticus. So that's it.
Okay. All right. So here's my general thoughts. I liked the movie. I thought it was pretty good. But the issues you bring up, Venom, are kind of what kept me from thinking it was like great. Because I don't, we'll have to get into the details on spoilers because I can't go as far as to say I felt it was ambiguous because I think I had a pretty good grasp of what was going on and what it had to say. My issue, and this might have to do with the shorter running time because I think it was only 85 minutes, which isn't always a bad thing.
Mhm.
It's not like short running times are, notoriously bad, but I think there's two characters in this movie that make decisions at a certain point in the story that I wish we would have spent more time with them to have a better understanding of why they did what they did. And it's not our two main characters, it's two characters that kind of affect, well, I would say one that directly affects the story and one that kind of like makes a decision that seemed outside of their character through like the movie up to that point. And I wish we would have made had more scenes with like family because it trying to be a little bit what do you call it, ambiguous here. We have our two main characters and we also have both members of their families, or at least a mix of their families in the movie too. And so we're kind of getting a good idea or a little bit of a good idea of how they grew up, why things are the way they are. And there's just a couple characters. They make decisions that affect our main characters and kind of the course of the story and where it goes that I kind of question. And it's not so much a question of like, there's no way I could believe they could do that because I find their decision believable, but I wish we would have had, a little bit more time to flesh out these characters, especially if you're going to write into the script of like them doing these things. The ending, I don't know if I would call the ending ambiguous. I mean, I kind of understood or think I understood what was going on there. As far as like the entity and how it works, I mean, part of it, like I said in the opening, felt so similar to another movie, which I don't want to say because that would be too spoilery. Um, I mean, the rules weren't exactly the same, but in some ways, it just the the atmosphere and how it worked and how it was executed on screen gave me heavy vibes of that. As far as the cast, yeah, I thought the cast was really good. Um, the actors themselves were pretty good, and yeah, I wish we also knew more about there's a certain thing that takes place in the movie that kind of gets the ball rolling with afflicting our main character with the entity that I wish I would have known more about, like this character. Where did they come from? Where did they go? What's the relation? Are they like travel? Are they like doing house calls to communities that request their service? Because that character did the thing and then was pretty much gone. And I was like, I would have liked to know more about that and more behind the ritual because it seemed like outside of that, I don't know if you would call him like a vagrant, whatever deliverance thing, whatever they referred to him as to. It's like, is that with
Deliverance healer.
deliverance healer? Like, is that part of like the regular doctrine of what this religion used? I don't even know if they ever stated what this exact religion was. I mean, it
Nope.
seemed like a branch under the umbrella of like Christianity or Catholicism, one of the two. Other than that, maybe they kept it not so detailed on purpose because sometimes movies do that. I understand because they don't want to have to get nailed down to a specific uh like religious text or dogma so people can't nitpick at me like, well, you didn't exactly do that. So I understand that. But
Well, the name of the movie is Leviticus. I think we know what religion they're implying.
well, you know, no, I'm saying like, yeah, so I understand it's under the umbrella. Like that, it's clear enough that it's under the larger umbrella. I'm just saying like it's like they might not always get down to like we're this branch of this sect of this. Like that's what I meant by that. But yeah, so I have a feeling I might have like some of the issues you bring up, I might not necessarily disagree with. I just think maybe if it caused you to dislike the movie, then they didn't cause that much of a problem for me. It just made me going from thinking it's like great to just like good. And I still liked it, but maybe it's just going to be chalked up as like a movie that had potential to be even better, and it was just kind of good. But I'll
Mhm.
probably leave it at
Yeah, I
that.
mean, I might have misspoke earlier when I said I didn't like the movie. There's a lot about this movie that I did enjoy. Like I said, the technical stuff, the performances, the setting. It's just there's too many plot holes for me, which obviously I'll go over in the spoiler section. But yeah, it's not even necessarily the ambiguity, it's the plot holes that bothered me. But again, we'll get to that. And as far as the hypocrisy, I mean, every religion has, a little bit of hypocrisy in their holy book. So, I don't want to just nitpick on Christianity, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I'm not even thinking of it as in like anything specific, like or especially specific about this religion. It's just that this happens to be the religion that the movie was centered around, and I would assume, I don't know. Let's see, the Adrian Chiarelli was the director and writer. I think it might be a feature debut, right? I'm thinking.
Potentially,
Um,
yeah.
because if it is, and the guy, he looks young-ish, so it could
No, he actually
be,
does have some full length titles. He's got a lot of shorts, but he does have a couple of full length titles. As an editor, so maybe this is his directorial feature length
yeah, that's
debut.
what I meant.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I would. A lot of times, if it's a director writer feature debut and it's like a movie like with this type of theme or subtext, it might be like something personal to like his coming of age or growing up or something he had to deal with. Like I said, I don't know much about him, so I can't say for certain, but it seems like this is like a very specific story about a very specific experience growing up that there could be some like personal stuff in there.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
and that pretty much wraps it up for my general thoughts. And Dawn is not back yet, and he he didn't answer Messenger, so I wonder if like his whole internet went down.
It's possible. I mean,
Because usually
you know,
he ever notice in like most chats, no matter who you message or even if you message no one at all, Don's usually like the first one to see things.
exactly.
So
Yeah. No. Yeah, but even ultimately though, even if he lost the internet, you'd think he'd be able to see the messages on his phone
that's true.
on cell. So I don't know. I mean, you want to move on, or do you want
Unless he
to
hated the movie that much. And then he's like, I don't
and I
want to
wouldn't
talk
be
about
surprised, honestly, because literally as I'm sitting there watching it, I'm thinking Don's gonna hate this. And then when the ending comes, it's like, oh yeah, Don's gonna hate this.
Oh, 20 minutes in, I pegged it as not a Dawn movie. There's like one scene in the movie that happens, like a confrontation scene, that I was like, okay, Dawn might like this scene, but other than that, it's not gonna be for him probably. All right, so unfortunately, it looks like we lost our co-host Dawn to the powers of the internet or the powers to take the internet down. So, since we kind of already got into like our general thoughts, what we're gonna do for this episode is we're just gonna keep going and get into spoilers. And if and when Dawn gets back to us before we kind of finish the episode out, we'll just kind of infuse him like kind of right back in real time where he can say his piece on the movie. We'll just kind of like find a good point to hand him the mic and let him say what he wants to say. So until that happens, this is going to be a spoiler warning for spoilers on Leviticus. So you know what to do if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled. So Venom, let's get into some of the problems you had with the movie.
All right. Well, let's start with the story a little bit as far just so I can kind of set the mood or set the tone a little bit. Our movie opens up with a cold open. We see a girl by herself at a swimming pool, like a public swimming pool. And then the shower, as she walks by the shower magically turns on. Like we as the audience don't see anyone in the shower, but she starts looking into the shower and speaking like there's somebody in there. So she decides to join whoever is in the shower. She takes her clothes off. And then as the scene progresses, we start hearing, the moans that, we always associate with some kind of sex. We see as the camera gets closer, we see that the girl is naked in the shower and moaning like someone is doing something to her sexual. And then we see her like get on her knees, almost like she's going to go down on someone. But again, we are not seeing anyone standing there. And then as soon as she bends down out of sight, that's when we start to hear like, the cracking and the smashing, and like something is tearing this girl apart. She ends up popping up over a wall that's blocking our view to try to pick herself back up. We see that she's covered in blood, and then something drags her back into the steamy shower, and that's the end of that. So obviously, I'm fine with horror movies giving us a horror-filled cold open. It sets the mood, and I'm okay with that. After that, we meet Name, and yes, his name is Name. While I'm watching the movie, I'm like, wait, are they actually just calling him Name? But then when I saw at the end credits, it's spelled Naim. So maybe it's an Australian name, something that's more common down there, but I don't know. It almost felt like somebody calling their dog. So it just felt weird to me. But again, so our main character is named Name. He is friends with a kid named Ryan, kind of the cool kid in school, tall, fairly chiseled, blonde, good looking, blah, blah, blah. They're kind of horsing around like your average teenage boys do. And then suddenly they get intimate. Ryan drops a kiss on Name. Name at first seems surprised, but then he leans back in, or he pulls Ryan back in, and they have a more intense kiss. So obviously, Name and Ryan are starting a relationship. Now, as the movie goes along, we find out that Name and his mother, and it's just them. I don't think they even mentioned dad. I don't know if he died or ran off or whatever, but it's just Name and mom.
Yeah. Yeah, so
They are
two things, because you already got into two things I was wondering. And the first one was if I like missed some dialogue, but it sounds like I didn't because of what you just said. The relationship between the two guys, like, to me, when the movie picks up, it seems like this is just like starting out. Like, and
yeah.
because of that's one of the other issues with the short running time is we don't have much time to develop this relationship. Like, I couldn't tell if this was like a burgeoning, like, actual relationship. Was this just like teenage experimentation where they're more on Name's part? Because other dude, what's the other dude's name? Why am I blanking on it?
Ryan.
Ryan obviously seems like more in tune with like what he's actually feeling, because we find out like Name's not the only dude he's messing around with, right? But for Name, I had trouble understanding, like, is this like kind of Name's coming out party and he never realized he was gay before, or what's going on? And that was like one thing, because yeah, it was just seemed so new. I wish we had a little more time to spend with the characters just on that front. Like, what is this? And then two, I really wanted more background on how they ended up in this like small religious town, and like, is it because at first when the movie ended, or when I was like thinking about it afterwards, I was like, okay, so the father's missing, that much is understood, but like I couldn't for the life of me remember, did I miss something where it was spoken that like maybe the dad died, or he abandoned the family? Because like because I was wondering the whole time what made the mom want to have them move to like this really kind of like small, I would say rural, but not like farmland rural. It's kind of like that halfway between type of town where like
Yeah.
you're not in a city, but you're not far from it. That type of suburb, but it's very much like populated by this, I guess, fundamentalist in their own way kind of religious sect. And I'm like, I wish I would have understood. Was the mom always like this, or is it because of like losing the father that it compelled her to like convert and like dive in? Because once we kind of learn more about like the mom's role in some stuff, it kind of threw me like, wait, why would she be okay with this and go along with it?
Yeah.
Unless there was major issues with like her that are kind of unspoken and not fully realized. And again, to me, that's kind of like a running time thing. And like maybe there was more, I don't even want to say exposition, but maybe more scenes that fleshed out these characters a little more to understand. Because as it stands, like up to that point, I wouldn't have thought the mother would go down that road, but I was wrong. So,
Right.
so just just
I mean,
based on like where
the
you
other
are so far.
possibility too. Yeah, the other possibility too isn't that dad died. Maybe dad cheated and took off, which drove mom to religion. I mean, there's always
Yeah.
that aspect too. So, I mean,
Yeah, because she did
I'm
bring
right
up.
there with you.
I think she did bring up like the issue of like, oh, it's like safety, it protects us, or something like that, like later in the movie as like some
Right.
justification.
Yeah, exactly. So, um, anyway, one day Name is going to Ryan's house as he tends to do, and when he gets there, he sees that Ryan is there with Hunter. Hunter is the son of the preacher of this town, and they're doing something very weird. Again, maybe someone who knows something about Australia might be able to explain this, but they were throwing rocks at each other for fun. Like, I've never seen that shit in my life ever. And I'm not talking about little pebbles. I'm talking about big fucking stones. They're throwing stones at each other. and it's almost like a test of strength, like, who's going to fall down first or something, and they're just throwing rocks at each other, which is really weird. Anyway, they end up getting
I
into a little bit of a shove. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
yeah, I was just on the stoning thing. I This is another thing I read, that like the subtext is kind of like the stoning
The
aspect in
Yeah,
religious text, kind of.
again, in Leviticus, yeah.
Yeah,
Which,
kind
like
of
I said,
because
I'll
they
get
know
into
that they're
here.
like sinners, so it's maybe like the form of, like, you remember in Saint Maud when she's like whipping herself, kind of like the self
Well, that's
pain.
penance, though. I don't think these kids were doing penance because they were like laughing. They were like throwing rocks at each other, and whenever they would connect, I should say, they like chuckled a little bit. Like I said, it
Yeah,
just
that's
felt
true.
like kind of a I don't know, an insanely masculine game is what it kind of felt like to me. I don't know. But yes, I do see that the kind of connections to the biblical, stoning of people. So, obviously, I guess it's a metaphor. So I guess I'll accept it as that, whatever. Anyway, Ryan and Hunter are playing their little throwing rocks game. They end up getting into a little bit of a shoving match, just like Ryan did with Name. And just like Ryan did with Name, they start kissing each other. Hunter and Ryan start basically making out passionately. Whereas Name and Ryan had like one of those kind of awkward first kisses that's kind of soft and quick. This was like a passionate, like, we've been together for months and whatever, and we haven't seen each other in a while type kiss. Like, they were going at it. Name, in his infinite wisdom, decides to rat on Ryan and Hunter, with, like I said, Hunter being the son of the town preacher and Ryan being his love interest. He decides to rat on them, and he kind of knows that there's going to be repercussions. He obviously doesn't know what those repercussions are, but he knows that there's going to be some kind of punishment or penance or something, but he still does it. Despite being gay himself, he still decides to rat on Ryan and Hunter. And later in the film, he
That
says that he
teenage
was just
angst
kind
got
of
the best of him.
confused. I guess that's what I thought at first. I thought it was jealousy, but
I
when
thought it
someone
was
asked him
jealousy
what,
too.
right, but when someone asked him, he didn't say that he was jealous. He said that he was confused and that he didn't know
Uh,
what to do,
when he said he was
which
confused,
I
I thought
guess
that
could
was
still
him
be
trying to
jealousy.
obfuscate. Yeah, like,
Possibly.
yeah.
I mean, it seemed like he was being really sincere in that scene. I mean, he had tears in his eyes. So, it just, I don't
To
know.
me, to
Again,
me, so the way I took it, and this goes back to like trying to read Name as a character, because it's very limited, because we jump right into like, this supposed new relationship thing. My assumption was, like I said before, Name is kind of like new to expressing his feelings, and so this is like the first person he's like comfortable with opening up to, and like being his, quote unquote true self. And then like literally, I would think, what is it, like the next day he sees him like embracing the other dude, and he was probably just
yeah.
hurt and upset, and he acted out stupidly, and like didn't think of like the overall consequences that would happen by doing it. Um, and it's like that teenager, when you get like that blockhead syndrome, where you don't think beyond the initial action you take. And that's what I think happened. And then he tried to like say, I was confused, I didn't know. But like, if he really would have thought about it, like, how could you not think that would happen in this town?
No, valid. Absolutely valid. So, the point is, like I said, Name sits down with the parents of Hunter, with Hunter's parents, and basically rats them out. Says that he saw. I mean, we don't actually see we see them sit down at a table, and then at the very next scene, what we see is Ryan and Hunter at somebody's house, at one of their houses, either Ryan or Hunter's house. And this is where we get the introduction of the deliverance healer. I don't know why he's called the deliverance preacher on IMDb. They never said deliverance preacher in the movie. Deliverance healer was what they called him, because I remember thinking, oh, like a faith healer. And that's kind of, to an extent, kind of what he is, except that he's one of those conversion
it
guys, one of
it
those
almost
uh-huh.
it's like, the easiest way I could describe this is like he's almost performing like the opposite of an exorcism, because it's like he's not getting an evil entity away. He's like tagging an evil entity to you, again in like a weird way.
Exactly. I'd like to think that any of the parents of this town who accepted the services of the deliverance healer were probably lied to. I can't imagine that the deliverance healer told them exactly what was going to happen, because I don't think many parents, I think most parents would rather have living gay kids than dead ones. So yeah, I'd like to think that maybe that the healer lied to the parents of the town. But again, we find out so little about the healer. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I question, and maybe it's like getting ahead of where we are in the actual movie, but oh well, we're kind of talking about it, is the process of how this thing works. It's like, how is the natural conclusion not that your kid's going to end up dead? Because it's like, it's basically attaching this evil entity for quote unquote thought crime or thought sin,
Yeah.
And it's like,
But
well,
the thing is, though, see, I thought that as well. Like when we first started getting, like when we first got the scene with Hunter, and we understand that the deliverance healer is basically tagging these kids. I basically started to wonder, like, so are these kids dead the instant that they're tagged, or is this like a test? Like at first, I thought the entity always looks like the person that you desire the most. So anytime that Name saw the entity, it looked like Ryan. But I thought that maybe if Name were to like deny Ryan or the entity looking like Ryan, if you were to say, no, I don't want to do that anymore, that the entity might leave him alone, that this would be like a test to see if they are actually, quote unquote cured. But then as the movie goes along, it seems more and more like, no, these kids are just tagged to be killed. Like there's nothing they can do about it. There's nothing they can do to escape it, to get out of it. Like even if they were to literally declare, I am no longer gay, I have no desire to be with men, I feel like the entity probably still would have gone after them based on certain scenes later in the film. So this is another bit of ambiguity that I don't even know how this curse works. Is it a test or is it just flat out murder? And because we share so little screen time with the deliverance healer, like we know nothing about this guy whatsoever, other than that he's a giant hypocrite, because of course he's tagging these gay kids, who are potentially gay, to be basically cursed to be killed. Yet literally just by looking at him, you can see that he has broken multiple rules in Leviticus. And this is where I'm going to get into my religious diatribe, folks. So give me a couple of minutes here. Leviticus is one of the most insane fucking books of the Bible because of the things that are prohibited in that book. Things like no tattoos, things like not eating shellfish, things like what else? Things like prostituting your daughter if your family needs money. Yes, that is fucking allowed in Leviticus. You can prostitute your own daughter if the family needs money. So this
is not wearing two types of cloth at the same time in there too.
Exactly. Combining different types of cloth is in there. I mean, I've got a list of 76 things here. I'm obviously not going to read them all. But I definitely cursing a deaf person is against Leviticus. What else? Wait, there were some good ones in here. Sleeping with another man's slave. That's interesting. Oh, and then here are some of the ones now. What's funny is that the deliverance healer is very obviously against gay people because he's tagging these kids for murder. Yet, did you notice that he had tattoos on his arms? Literally in Leviticus 19:28, it says you are not to mark your skin. You are not to augment your body or mark your skin in any way. Yet this guy has tattoos. What else is prohibited in Leviticus? Trimming your beard. You're not allowed to trim your beard in Leviticus. You're supposed to let your beard grow all the way down to the floor. Well, guess what? Our deliverance healer did have a beard, but he very obviously trims it because it wasn't like a big bushy one. It was more like a dirty biker beard, as kind of Mike implied earlier. Mistreating foreigners, and this is one of my favorite ones, my friends. Leviticus 19:33 and 34 says that a foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Can anybody think of a president who maybe isn't following that currently? I can think of a couple. Well, I can think of one specifically. But anyway, the hypocrisy of that is that, literally Leviticus 33 says that you're not allowed to mistreat foreigners. Yet Leviticus 25:42 says that selling an Israelite as a slave is not allowed, but any foreigners are. So wait a minute. I'm not allowed to mistreat foreigners, but I can make them my slave? What? This is the laughable hypocrisy of this book that millions, if not billions, of people live by. It's just ridiculous. And like I said, watching this, deliverance healer, looking at him and being able to pick out, like, oh, he also had pierced ears, by the way, also not allowed in Leviticus. It's just like this guy is such a hypocrite, but he's cursing these fucking kids to death. Now, the other thing I was thinking about is, what is this entity? Like, is it a demon? But that doesn't make sense. Why would a demon have a problem with homosexual people? Demons should love homosexuality. Considering the Catholic Church looks at homosexuality as being evil, you'd think demons would be down. Like, yeah, rock on. Why not? Again, it doesn't make any fucking sense to me. But I did a little bit of research on Leviticus. For those who don't know, and I'm sure many of you don't, Leviticus is not a person. A lot of the books of the Bible, the book of Paul, the book of John, they're, written by people. The book of Leviticus, Leviticus is not a person. Leviticus is a reference to a group of Israelite priests that were responsible for religious rituals, and they were known as the Levites, hence Leviticus. So was this entity potentially the ghost of one of these Levites enacting revenge from beyond the grave? Like, again, I just don't know. I don't understand. This is the ambiguity of this entity, It's not like It Follows, where in It Follows, it's cut and dry. You have sex, this thing chases you until it either kills you or you have sex with someone else. And I didn't like It Follows, by the way. And I've heard, and I'm sure that's probably the movie that Mike was referencing earlier, because I've heard a lot of reviewers reference It Follows, even though It Follows, really, there's very little similarity other than an entity chasing you.
Yeah, I think that's mostly where the similarities is, just the kind of
it pretty much starts and ends right
entity, there. Yeah, and then once it gets a hold of you, there's really nothing you can do.
Exactly. Like in It Follows, you don't recognize the entity that's following you. It looks like a total stranger, except for that one kid, the kid who lived across the street from our main character. He was actually his little It Follows entity was his mother, looked like his mother. But in all other instances, it's a total stranger. It's someone.
Yeah, I think it was Mike and Monroe's dad at the end in the pool. But other than that, yeah.
Oh, you think? Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah. That's what
I didn't like that movie enough to look into it.
Because you remember they were all there with her, and the sister was like, "What does it look like, or who is it?" And she's like, "I don't want to tell you." I think it was, and I think we got a brief flash of like the family picture in her house, and it looked like the dad. But that's another movie for another time. But yeah, that is the comparison as far as like the entity following the people, and like there's shots of like the entity off in the distance. Like, to me, that was like totally, and I don't have a problem with that necessarily, because it's like a cool concept. But yeah, outside of that, this is very different than the movie itself.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I see the similarities. I do, but like, I didn't really like It Follows, so I don't like comparing it to other movies.
Now, in our cold opening, I think it was either cold opening or just the literal first scene. I can't remember. But I mean, you already went through it. The girl that got killed in the shower.
Mhm.
Later on, when they're like researching that, and they go to visit like the was it like a witness or a friend in like the mental hospital or whatever? Did
No,
they
no,
ever
that was a regular hospital. That was a
Oh,
regular
okay.
hospital that the girl worked at because remember she always wanted to be around
Yeah,
people, and
yeah.
the only business that she could work at where there's always people around is a hospital, at least in that town. So,
Okay.
but yeah, she wasn't a witness. That was the love interest. That was the girl's love interest in the cold open.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why she didn't want to talk about it, because she saw the entity as well, and it
actual
probably looked like the
relationship.
girl in the shower. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
because I mean, that's interesting because the point you made up, like, is homosexuality is only like one sin, and I'm assuming people are committing all types of sins, but like, is this another case of like we're just going to elevate the how much we hate this one sin, so we're going to call in the deliverance healer to only go after this specific
yep.
thing?
While he's breaking all sorts of other sins from the exact
Hmm.
same fucking book of the Bible. The
I was
hypocrisy.
I don't know
I'm sure
about
that was a
you.
purposeful choice. I'm not saying that it was accidental or that it was missed. I'm sure it was a purposeful choice by the filmmakers to have this guy look like a total hypocrite, assuming you know Leviticus. Obviously, if you don't know Leviticus, you don't notice anything. All you see is the fact that he's got the white collar on, so he obviously looks like he's a man of the cloth. But once you actually watch the movie, you realize maybe he's not so much a man of the cloth as something else
I,
completely. But
yeah, I was as the movie was going on and they start to like get an understanding of what's happening. I was really hoping they were able to track that guy down just to like have a scene
yeah,
with like
anything.
confronting
I mean,
him
even
or
if
something.
even if you didn't, like I said, explain the entirety of the story, something like talk to him. Even if he was standoffish and didn't actually give us any new information, it just would have made sense to try to find this guy. I don't know. It just felt really, like I said, this is what I mean about the movie is too ambiguous. It's one thing if your ending is ambiguous. It's another if the majority of the plot points in your movie are ambiguous. That's where I start to lose interest. And I'm just scratching my head like, did they edit out a half hour of this movie that explains a lot more and just went with this, 85-minute runtime for, I don't know. I mean, again, I've never made a movie,
Yeah,
so I don't know, but goddamn.
because it seemed like the way as the movie went on and we kind of learned more, it seemed like the guy was just sort of a like hired gun, or like you just pay for him to come to where he needs to perform the service, and he has no actual, he's not like a town elder of that little community. He's just, I guess they have a way to reach like an outsider with this ability, and when duty calls, I guess they just probably pay him and say, okay, come attach this thing to these people. And this town must have a big issue with it because like
Obviously.
he's coming back to this town quite a bit.
Exactly. And it's like with the amount of these kids that all disappear, I mean, even if he was lying to all the parents, you'd think eventually they'd be able to figure it out. It's like, what are the odds that all of these kids are running away? That seems insane.
Well,
A few of
yeah,
them, maybe even half of them, sure, but all of them? No, no. That seems stupid.
yeah, and
But again,
it happens directly after he performs whatever ritual he's performing.
literally, yeah, like within a day or two in some cases. Like with Hunter, I literally think it was the day after he got his ceremony that he was taken out. So, yeah. Anyway, back to the movie. Oh, here's another thing that Leviticus prohibits: having sex with a woman during her period. I'm going to hell. Anyway, so stupid. Yeah, God. All right. I'm sorry. I got to get off my soapbox. I'm sorry. Anyway, back to the story. So after the ceremony is completed, there's a scene where Name follows Ryan into like a skating rink. This, one of those little local skating rinks that has like a little arcade and a food stand and shit like that. There's not many people there. There's literally sparse people in there. He follows Ryan in there and he notices that Ryan is in the photo booth, but Ryan's talking to someone. As the audience, we see Ryan go into the photo booth by himself, but he's speaking to someone. And then the pictures start coming out. And we start seeing that slowly Ryan is basically undressing. And then he starts making out with nothing. Like there's nothing there, but he's in the pose with his mouth open and his arms around something, like he's making out with somebody. But then something attacks him. Whatever it is that he's in there with attacks him and actually, like, you know, scratches up his face a little bit. And Name tries to stop. Ryan basically starts running away, and Name says, whoa, 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 what's going on? What happened in there? And he's like, you did this. You did this to me. Why would you do this? And of course, Name has no idea what he's talking about. What are you talking about? And what's funny to me is that Name never showed him the pictures. Like the first thing I would have done was like, dude, look at the pictures. You're in there by yourself. But Name didn't do it. So again, you know, I guess youthful stupidity more than anything, but whatever. I mean, he literally had the proof in his hands that he didn't attack Ryan, but decided not to show it to Ryan. So go figure. That evening, at that point, Name starts kind of putting some pieces together, and he's starting to realize that, you know, maybe that healing ceremony isn't what we thought it was. And by the way, the ceremony is very quick. Literally, the deliverance healer lights his Zippo lighter. He tells the person or people that are targeted to stare into the flame. And then he just says one thing. He basically says 2 flames, one to cleanse and one to rebuild or rebirth or something along those lines. And then he turns the lighter off. And then instantly the people, in this case, Ryan and Hunter, it looks like they start choking. You know, they can't breathe. They fall to the floor, almost like something's attacking them. And then they snap out of it instantly. And as soon as they snap out of it, the deliverance healer basically says, there, it's done. You should have no more desires to be with, you know, the same sex, even though literally in the very next scene, Ryan is going into a photo booth with what he thinks is Name, but it's not, of course. So anyway, Name decides to go visit Hunter at his job. And Hunter is by himself closing he works at a diner and he's by himself. The owner leaving Hunter by himself. Don't forget, Hunter is the son of the preacher who made out with Ryan, blah blah blah. And suddenly we see Hunter go outside to take out the trash, and he starts talking to someone, but Name is at the window looking outside, and he realizes Hunter's talking to no one. And then Hunter does the exact same thing that Ryan did in the photo booth. He starts embracing and kissing an invisible entity like there's nobody there. Unfortunately, when Hunter went outside to take out the trash, all the doors to the diner locked behind him, trapping Name inside the diner. So Name is literally smashing at the window, trying to get it open, trying to get Hunter's attention. And all we see is Hunter being lifted off the ground, again, by an invisible entity, and being choked out. And then he gets like slammed down to the ground. And then just as he's about to get up, he gets pulled into the darkness across the street, into like a dark forest across the street from the diner. And then that's it. That's all we see. The next morning, we see Hunter's decapitated head out in an empty field. And like I said, Name's gears are turning. He's kind of putting 2 and 2 together. And then at Hunter's funeral, and what's funny is that a lot of these kids that go through this conversion ritual end up leaving town. They either disappear or they quote unquote move out of town. Like Name is even under the belief that one of the people that went through this procedure is living in another city and is now married with children. So, you know, again, someone's lying to somebody here. So like I said, that's the end of Hunter. At Hunter's funeral, Name and Ryan kind of, you know, walk away from the funeral, and they start talking. But then out of nowhere, Ryan attacks Name. He starts choking him. He starts smacking him up against the fence. And we, as the audience, realize, oh shit, that's not Ryan, that's the entity. But because Name, oh, and I forgot to mention, yes, that Name does end up, his mother forces him to go through. And in this case, literally forces him, like literally gets two grown men to hold Name down while he goes through the ritual. And again, this is because the mother suspected that Name might have been gay. No proof, mind you, no admission of guilt, literally just because she thought that he was spending too much time with a kid who was, openly gay, that he himself must be gay, which in this case, she was right, but it was still a stupid assumption to make.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I briefly brought it up earlier. We don't have much background on them, like prior to being in this town. So it's like I was kind of thrown that the mother was so willing to do that, even like because she might have had like some idea of what it would be like, but then once like the two guys are coming and like physically hauling them off to it, it's like she's just kind of like indifferent to it. I'm like, damn, I want to know more about the mom and why she's like okay with this. Like, was she, and if she, like, where did this kind of fundamentalism from her come from? Because that's what I was really unsure about is how she kind of fell into this.
Exactly. Yeah. But later on, we get a kind of vague answer, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. So, like I said, Ryan attacks, or the entity looking like Ryan attacks Name, but Name is able to get away. At that point, they decide to try to speak to someone about it, and it ends up that that is it Hunter's sister? I think that's Hunter's sister that ends up kind of befriending them and telling them information about the entity, that basically anybody who goes through this procedure from the deliverance healer will then be stalked by a supernatural entity, and the entity will always look like the person that they desire. The person that they're in love with, or whatever the case may be, the person that they're lustful for, whatever. But she doesn't really give them a whole lot more information than that, other than, the fact that she talks about the girl in the cold open and how she had been murdered. And like I said, she never flat out admits that they were in a relationship, but I hate to judge a book by its cover, but the girl does kind of look like a lesbian. She's a tall, big girl, kind of, doesn't dress very feminine, blah, blah, blah. So, again, I'm making an assumption, but I think the movie wants me to make that assumption, because as soon as they bring up, the fact that they want her to help them, she kind of snaps at them and is like, no. Like, she probably feels like she figured out a way to get away from the curse, because, like I said, she works at a hospital. Oh, and then she's the one, well, not her, but the first Hunter's sister, the first girl that befriends them, tells them, she's the one who tells them that, the entity looks like the person that you desire, and that, you kind of need to stay away from them. And also that the entity will not attack when there's other people around. So we've already started to establish the rules of this thing, which are going to be broken within 20 minutes, because later in the film, when Name is trying to get on a bus with Ryan, there's a busload of people there, including Ryan. Something happens where the door of the bus closes early and Ryan is able to get on the bus, but Name is left outside. But then we see the entity looking like Ryan walking right up to the bus, right towards Name. And like I said, this is a bus not filled with people, but there's multiple people there. So this thing was intending to attack Name in front of all these people, which, again, so we've already broken the first rule that's been established about this thing, which, again, kind of bothers me. If you're going to establish a rule, fucking stick to it, or at least explain to me why the entity was able to break the rule on this particular instance. But again, no explanation here. So off we go.
Yeah, like there were some various shots and other points in the movie I think that I was okay with, where the entity would be off kind of in the distance.
Yeah.
And you could notice that like the entity couldn't advance because there's other people around. To me, that made sense. The bus one was kind of like going right up to the line or over the line because yeah, there's plenty of people on this bus. So the entity kind of being a good distance away, kind of like looking on would make sense, but it shouldn't have been able to get like close enough to do any harm in that instance.
Exactly. At least that's what I would think anyway. So eventually, yes, they do end up getting on the bus, and this is where we get our only sex scene. But it's just a hand job basically. Ryan gives Name, a hand job, gives him an old fashioned on the bus. It's a sweet scene for whatever it's worth. I mean, if you can handle the image of two guys kind of servicing each other, if you will. But it was actually very well. It wasn't gratuitous at all. It was very nicely made, and yeah, you actually kind of felt for the two boys. My issue now at this point in the movie is that Name is aware that if he's alone and he sees Ryan, 9 times out of 10, that's not Ryan. That's the entity. Yet he still ends up getting at least 3 more times in the movie, ends up getting like in a situation with the entity that could have easily been avoided. The one where the entity shows up at his house, I feel like that could have easily been avoided. Don't open the fucking door. And what does he do? He opens the goddamn door. So again, and I understand that these are teenagers. These kids are in high school, so they're not the most intelligent people in the world. But at this point in the film, Name knows what's going on. He knows for a fact what's going on, yet he still somehow gets himself into these situations where the entity is able to attack him. So I started to kind of lose my faith in Name after a while. Like, I thought you were a smart kid and you're thinking with your heart and not your head. And I understand that in a lot of instances, it's better to think with your heart than your head. But when your fucking life is at stake, no, think with your brain, dude. Don't think with your heart, for fuck's sake. So yeah, that kind of bothered me about Name. But it's a minor grievance more than anything. Again, he's a high school kid. I'll accept the fact that maybe he's a little ignorant, or just the fact that whenever he sees Ryan, he kind of gets all squishy inside, if you will. Kind of like, when I see Mrs. Venom for the first time in a couple of days, because Mrs. Venom and I have very different schedules. When I'm home, she's working. When she's home, I'm sleeping. So we almost, we'll go 3-4 days never laying eyes on each other, literally. So, I understand that giddiness when you see the person that you love for the first time in a couple of days. I totally understand that. But at the same time, there's no entity that looks like Mrs. Venom trying to kill me. So, again.
Yeah, I think you can add in like the loneliness and isolation to it that kind of like
yeah
helped him be coerced, because you got the situation where he likes a dude, but he can't trust. Then you got the town that's like disgusted and against him even liking the dude in the first place. No friends. His mom is basically betrayed him. So it's like it almost has a feeling of like, at this point I'm just giving up, and I'm on a wing of prayer that this guy's actually the guy, but
yeah exactly.
he's not most of the time.
Nope. Now, what Mike is alluding to with the mom is later on in the film, we finally find out that mom knew, maybe not knew completely. Like I said, I can't imagine if she knew that her son would be marked for death, that she would go along with this procedure. But she says that the healer told her that it would protect her son, which is obviously an outright lie. This thing is not protecting, it's destroying. And that is its intention. That's its only intention, is to destroy. Like I said early in the film, I thought the entity was like a test, where if you saw the person that you desired, but you push them away and, basically just, thwarted them, that the entity would leave you alone. Like, okay, he gets it now. He's not gay. And the entity would go along its merry way. But no, by the time you finish the movie, you realize, no, this thing is just out to kill. That's it. It's not out to teach a lesson. It is strictly here to end the lives of these, confused kids who may or may not be gay.
I think in their twisted head, well, maybe not the moms, but the healer guy, and his twisted head. It's the it's the sinful lust or the homosexual lust that is what needs protecting from. So in his mind, he's like, well, he's either gonna stop having these thoughts or he's gonna die. So either way, he'll be protected, which is fucked up to
Yeah,
a high degree.
and that's it. I mean, like I said, that goes right back to the over ambiguity of this film. Like, does the faith healer actually think that he's doing good, or is he a human antagonist who knows what he's doing and is just like, fuck it, I don't like gay people anyway, so fuck them. They
I mean,
deserve to die.
that's my guess is they're
Right.
super fundamentalists where they think that like uh we have to attack the sin at all costs, and if it takes out the sinner in the process, oh well. I mean, that's what I got by it because obviously they've done it enough times or they've reached out for his services enough times where it's like, well, we kind of know what the end result is by now and we keep doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, at this point, we've gotten our, realization that mom did, agree to let the deliverance healer do this to her son, maybe not knowing exactly what she was getting her son into. Again, at this point, Ryan, we end up having a great scene where Ryan or at least we think it's Ryan and Name, end up finding each other by alone, of course, which again makes me think, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you even out by yourself at this point? But, again, it's like he's shitting all over the curse. It's like he doesn't either care or doesn't really believe it truly. But I don't know. Like I said, it left me scratching my head why he continues to be in places by himself, continues to go out looking for Ryan by himself, knowing full well that when he finds them, it probably isn't going to be Ryan. So, so they end up having like kind of like this final standoff where Name and the entity looking like Ryan end up in like an abandoned warehouse type or like some kind of metal shop, whatever the case may be, a refinery of some kind. I know multiple times in the movie they show a refinery in the distance in that town. But again, I'm not sure if that's where this final scene takes place. The entity attacks Name once again, but this time Name defends himself, and this is where I like the whole movie. I'm like, why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you scratching, pulling his eyeballs out, or fucking something to defend yourself? But then I get my answer in this scene because he stabs Ryan. Name stabs the entity looking like Ryan in the neck to no effect. Then he pulls out a small pair of scissors and stabs him directly in the eye. Again, no effect. The entity is still just continuing his onslaught. Eventually, Name realizes that the entity is scared of fire. Again, making me think that it's not a demon, because what kind of demon would be scared of fire? Again, I don't know. I thought demons lived in the pit of fire. So again, whatever.
Well, you would okay, and that's another thing. So it's scared of fire. It temporarily paralyzes it,
Yeah.
or at least puts it in enough pain that it downs it.
Yeah.
Why don't you just light the damn thing on fire?
That's what I said. I literally said that out loud in the theater. Go and flame his ass up.
I mean,
You
maybe it
literally-
doesn't work, but at least try it. I understand the very first time because maybe it's the
Yeah.
shock of the process where like, okay, I got it down, I'm just gonna run. But like, I think there's like a second or third time and now he knows he's actually confronting it with the lighter, like with intent. And I'm like, well, now that you know, at least attempt to light the damn thing on fire and see what happens.
Exactly. But what ends up happening is he ends up starting, rather than setting the entity on fire, he ends up starting a fire in the facility that they're in, the warehouse or the refinery or whatever the hell, wherever they are. He sets a fire to the place. The place starts to go up in flames, but then Ryan starts calling out to him from an open window. And, Ryan basically looks at him and says, it's okay. It's okay that you're doing this to me. It's, it's probably what I would have wanted anyway, or it's the end that I would have gotten to anyway. But then Name basically realizes, nope, that ain't Ryan, and slams the window shut on him. We hear some screaming in the background as Name walks away. And then after this is when we find out that, you know, his mother knew what that, you know, not knew exactly what was happening, but, you know, asked the deliverance healer to do this to him, and that she thought that it would protect him from his gay thoughts, blah, 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 which it obviously didn't. And after this final confrontation, we get to the final scene of the movie, which is Name deciding to leave town. He packs a bag. He decides to walk to the bus stop. And when he gets to the bus stop, there's Ryan standing there, who also had the exact same idea of just leaving town. Now, obviously, Name is a little skittish. He's not 100% sure if that's Ryan, but then Ryan basically says to him, dude, there's other people around and they can see me. Look, you know, I'm very obviously me. So then they decide to get on the bus together. They leave town together. And the last image of the film is as the bus is leaving town, Name looks out the window and sees Ryan in the distance staring at them. And then our movie fades to black, which, like I said, just left me with so many fucking questions. Like, is that entity stuck in that town? Like, he literally can't follow them wherever they go? That doesn't make sense. That's never implied once in this movie. Obviously, we never even find out what the entity is. Is it the ghost of one of the Levites, one of the biblical Levites? Is it a demon? Is it, I mean, you know, what the fuck? Is it just plain old black magic that maybe the deliverance healer is practicing? We get no explanation whatsoever. So when we get that ending and we see the entity in the distance looking at both of them as they're leaving town, I'm just like, well, wait a minute. Why can't he just go after him? That doesn't make any fucking sense. Is this movie actually over, or is there going to be another movie after this? Like, are they going for a trilogy here? I don't know. Like I said,
Yeah.
the ambiguity of the ritual, the ambiguity of the religion, the ambiguity of the healer, and then the ambiguity of our ending is like, are they safe because they left town? Is that what I'm supposed to believe? Which I don't, because they never imply that if you leave town, you're safe. Because don't forget, they're not able to contact any of the kids who went through this ritual. It's almost implied that they all died and that none of them actually successfully left town. But I guess that's what we're supposed to believe by this ending. So I'm going to let Mike talk now. And because he says he thinks he understands the ending. So let's see what Mike's interpretation is.
I mean, just in a sense that, like, I think you got it right. I think that the ending is implying that, no, it's not over, that it'll, because of what the ritual does, it attaches to, like, your thoughts. And I don't even know if it's just lust, but just your desire for your partner, that it's basically never gonna, and you know, unless, like, you know, they release like a director's cut and there's a deleted scene that literally gave instructions on how to get rid of it. But what was implied in the movie,
I mean, I guess I can accept that. Yeah, I guess I can accept that. I don't know if I actually honestly do, just because it left me scratching my head a little bit. And then the fact that Name is staring the entity in the face and continues staring at it as the bus drives away. I don't know, man. It left me scratching my head. There's just too many plot holes in this movie. It is a very well-made movie. I've said it countless times already. When it comes to the filmmaking, it's stellar. It looks great. It sounds great. The acting is amazing. The editing, the progression of the story works. It's just the individual plot points, or should I say the lack thereof, is what's bothering me so much. Like I said, I liken this to The Plague that came out earlier this year. Another movie that was incredibly well acted, very well made, but with an incredibly ambiguous ending that just kind of left you scratching your head. Like, what happened to the kid that went to the hospital? We just kind of forgot about him. Like, we're supposed to just forget about him and the movie just ends. Like, that's just not satisfying to me. As I've said a million times before, and I'll say it a million times again, I don't need my stories handed to me on a silver platter. I don't need every aspect of the story explained to me. but you have to at least leave a trail of breadcrumbs that I, as the viewer, can follow so that I can put together my own story or my own ending for this movie. This movie, unfortunately, did not give me enough breadcrumbs to even be able to plug in the holes myself and be satisfied with it. Like, even whatever I come up with in my head, I'm still not satisfied with it. So, yeah, it's just a little too ambiguous, just a little bit. I feel like if they would have even given us one scene with Name speaking to the Deliverance healer, that might have satisfied me a little bit. But the fact that the healer is himself, the human antagonist of the film, is left very ambiguous. The supernatural antagonist of the film is left very ambiguous. The nature of this thing, how it works, what the rules are, even the couple of rules that they give us within the duration of this film end up getting broken anyway. So it's like, maybe nobody in this town understands what this thing actually is, especially the Deliverance healer, you know? So I don't know. Like I said, the movie leaves me scratching my head. I recognize the good things that it did, but I also recognize that I walked out of the theater very unsatisfied. So I'll just leave my review at that and say, go ahead and close it out, Mike.
All right. So if you've been listening up to now, that would then you would know that Dawn was not able to return. I'm assuming it's just internet issues. It happens. I think mine even acted weird like 5 minutes ago on this Zoom
yeah,
call.
because you cut out on me exactly 5 minutes ago. Like, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, something weird happened. So hopefully, if you're listening to this, that would have been edited as clean as I could. But yeah, so maybe, on our next episode, we'll let Dawn open up with like a small kind of, I guess, review. I don't know why I was struggling for the right word, but he can talk about his thoughts on it. Yeah. What new do you got, Venom? I know one thing because we were on it together, but you can go ahead.
So the one thing that I can speak on Don's behalf about is Creature Comforts, episode 51. I am done editing that. I just have to provide it to our network head. It sometimes takes him a couple of days to actually get it up on the network. So I would imagine as you hear this episode, Creature Comforts episode 51 will be available at the very least on YouTube, but it will follow shortly on darkdiscussions.com and on your podcast catchers. So on that episode, we looked at the original Rodan from 1956, the very first color kaiju movie, which makes it, it was also a discussion point on the show. And on the next episode, episode 52, we're going to be going deep into the oceans as we review Deep Rising. Some underwater horror to talk about, which I'm excited about, as I do enjoy that film. So I'm looking forward to watching it again and discussing it. But like I said, that'll be episode 52, which will be out in July. Episode 51, like I said, as you listen to this episode, should be available on YouTube, and then within a couple of days will be available everywhere else. Mike and myself were also both co-hosts on the latest episode of Cinema Beef, and that was the Father's Day special, where we looked at two very interesting fathers in cinema, one of them coming to us from the Lone Wolf and Cub franchise, and that movie was Shogun Assassin, I believe one of the last Lone Wolf and Cub movies, because the Lone Wolf and Cub movies, the majority of them are from the early 70s. Shogun Assassin was from 1980, so I assume this is one of the last Lone Wolf and Cub movies. And then we also looked at Tom Hanks in Road to Perdition. Yes, Tom Hanks as a mob enforcer raising two kids and trying to keep one of his kids alive throughout the majority of the film. A movie that I highly recommend if you haven't seen it, so check that out. But yeah, that's the latest episode of Cinema Beef, which is available as of right now. I believe that episode dropped either on Father's Day or the day before, so check that out, and you can hear me, Mike and myself talk about those two films along with other stuff that we've been watching. And and then I'll leave the main show for Mike to discuss. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me and Don.
All right, yeah. So that was a super fun episode of Cinema Beef that we did. And then the main show, we kind of gave ourselves a 2 week window because initially we were gonna do it this past weekend. I think we all overlooked that it happened to be Father's Day, so it was just kind of tougher for me to
Yeah,
book the time.
we
Or
overlooked it because you're the only dad that we podcast with.
yeah. Well, another thing is like holidays like that, like outside of like Christmas, I think, and maybe Thanksgiving, I guess, and Halloween. We don't always like make these super big plans ahead of time. It's more that like on the day of, it's a good idea to just leave it open because we might just decide, hey, it's Father's Day, want to go out to dinner, and like that wouldn't even be an option if I was like, well, no, because I'm going to be recording. So like that's why we kind of gave ourselves the additional week. So yeah, we ended up moving it to this upcoming weekend, and we'll be doing that. And then is there any theatrical horror in the theater this week? Do you know coming
I
up?
don't believe so.
Is Evil Dead
I
Burn the
didn't
next
actually
thing
look.
officially?
I think so, yeah. At
Because
least
we'll
I'm not
be,
seeing anything in the AMC app.
I think this weekend is officially July. Oh wait, no, that's like Tuesday, like a week
No, not
from
quite.
Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah, as I look at the AMC app, I am not seeing anything other than soccer, World Cup matches. Up
Yeah, Evil Dead
until
Burns opens on the 9th, Thursday the 9th, but that's the next thing I see. I mean, they're
yeah.
sometimes the smaller releases they'll pop in like on a Wednesday of the week, so there is a chance that something will open before then. So I'll keep a lookout. But if not, we'll be back to VOD and we'll find stuff. There's plenty of stuff sitting around. How good? I don't
Yeah, I'm
know.
looking forward to the last Jackass movie, as I am a big fan of Jackass. So the
Oh yeah,
fact
I
that they're
love it.
doing their final movie, I'm a little sad but still excited. Because I honestly thought, I mean, if you saw the last Jackass movie, Johnny Knoxville almost dies in that movie. So I honestly thought that was going to be the last one, but nope. Apparently he wants to die on film somehow. So
Yeah, I always kind of figured that like he would acknowledge that he's aging out, but then he would like kind of stick around as like a producer, or he would show up in the movie and do something like less impact. But no, it looks like he's full
yeah,
charge ahead in this.
well, like I said, anybody who saw the last Jackass movie knows that he almost died when that bull ran into him and like flipped him over 4 times and he landed on his back. I mean, he had to be taken to the hospital. I legitimately thought he was done with Jackass stuff, but nope, one more hurrah. So there you go.
All right, well, we'll be back next week with a new episode and hopefully Dawn as well. So that said, Venom, let's say bye to our listeners.
Oh, one last thing that you can't do in Leviticus is you can't reap the edge of your field. If you have a field where you grow vegetables, the edges are supposed to be left for the homeless and transients. And how many people actually care about the homeless in this world? So, yeah, just more fun from the book of Leviticus. Take care, folks.
Peace.